cry already.
Yeah, we made him cry. Yeah, we so mean to him. We're really close.
I'm gonna let it cry.
I'm gonna see if I can read all these announcements.
Mark, do you remember? Should you read all the announcements?
Should she read all the announcements? Well, are you asking me, is this
They're at the back of the office.
I would library. You don't have any commercials today, so.
Yeah, I was just,
I'm gonna do a couple of them, but not the whole.
Most people can read.
just let people know that we're on the back of the road service.
There's an extra one. We're having trouble reading all the Can you sing the announcements? You want me to dance too? Yes, the choir is so. He's Mark crying with me.
I have my sound turned down.
You want my hand? Oh, yes.
I got mine.
It's helping. She's spending a lot of time in there.
Oh, we got it sold.
She's disappointed. You know, I mean, it's more than 29, you know.
On? There we go. We're going to start the service shortly, but first I have a few announcements. The announcements are on. The announcements are on your order of service. Can you hear?
Can't hear you.
The announcements are on your order of service. The back of your order of service. And there's
Something's wrong.
Is the other mic on?
Check the other mic.
Is my phone doing something? I hope not. Let me see. Okay, is it working now? I'm sorry if my phone was doing that. I don't know. Okay. I do need my phone to read some of this stuff, but we'll see. Okay. One announcement, which is not on the back of your order of service, but is very important, has to do with the roundtable coming up next Sunday. Next Sunday, April 30th at 2 o'clock, we will have a roundtable with Don Kurtz, and he's going to be talking about 4 things, electrifying everything, 4 things that everyone can do to help to save the planet. Now, the Climate Action Group is not meeting tomorrow. We've decided to just meet the first and third Wednesdays of each month. So we won't meet tomorrow, but the following week, on May 1st, will be the day after the roundtable. We will discuss what he was talking about. And we'll send out a Zoom link so that you all can join us for the roundtable and for the climate group. There's a deadline for the light coming up. It's Tuesday, April 25th. And the multicultural meeting will be today at 3:30 p.m. And we have Tai Chi on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Thank you. We'll start shortly.
Good morning. Our gathering song is number 347, Gather the Spirit. I invite you to rise and embody your spirit as we sing together.
Buenos días, Iglesia. Bienvenidos a todos. Welcome, everyone, to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Las Cruces. Did you all have a good time at the auction yesterday? I sure did. That was wonderful, and thank you for everyone. A lot of people worked very hard to pull this off, and a lot of people donated wonderful things, and a lot of people bid on things. So I don't have any numbers yet of how much was raised for this very worthy cause, but when they crunch the numbers, they'll let us know. We welcome those of you who are in their sanctuary this morning, especially the children, and those who are joining us via streaming technology. I'm Kathy Cox, your service associate today. And today we are very honored and pleased to have Reverend Monroe Sikafus in the pulpit. And looking forward to this service about the red and the green. Our director of music is Catherine Massey, and she is joined today by the UUCLC choir. Assisting us are Elwin Nunn on camera, Claire Wallace on audio, and Mike Yatsko with streaming on YouTube. Our greeters today are Peggy Devlin, Robert Severance, and John Seeley. And Jane Ash. Jane Ash is here today, greeting also. Thank you, Jane. Hospitality is offered today by the Richens Covenant Group. We are all delighted to be with you today. Unitarian Universalism has no creed or dogma. We are a covenant-based church, meaning that we agree to live in relationship with each other according to the Unitarian Universalist principles and our congregation's covenant of right relations. We embrace diversity in all its forms. Everyone is welcome. You can learn more about our church at our website, uuuclc.org. If you are visiting today, we'd like to meet you. If you're in the sanctuary, please rise in body or spirit and introduce yourself by telling us your name and where you are from, but please wait until I bring the mic to you so that people on YouTube can hear you also. Do we have any visitors here in the sanctuary this morning?
Hello, my name is Lucy Silva. I'm from the First U congregation in Albuquerque.
Welcome. Welcome, Lucy. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. We're very pleased that you have joined us today for our service. And please fill out a visitor's card in the lobby and place it in the basket during the offertory, or leave it with a greeter or with me so we can invite you to other services and activities at the church. If you are a shy visitor but are curious about our church, please feel free to also fill out a visitor's card. There are some on the backs of chairs, I think. And you'll receive the same invitations. And after the service, please join us down the breezeway. We will have coffee, cookies, and conversation outside of the RE building, just down the breezeway.
Good morning. It's good to be together again. Our opening words this morning come to us from Mary Oliver, our UU Poet Laureate. My work is loving the world. Here the sunflowers, there the hummingbird, equal seekers of sweetness. Here the quickening yeast, there the blue plums. Here the clam, deep in the speckled sand. Are my boots old? Is my coat torn? I am no longer young and still not half perfect. Let me keep my mind on what matters, which is my work, which is mostly standing still and learning to be astonished. The phoebe, the delphinium, the sheep in the pasture, and the pasture, which is mostly rejoicing since all the ingredients are here, which is gratitude, to be given a mind and a heart and these body clothes, a mouth with which to give shouts of joy. To the moth and the wren, to the sleepy, dug-up clam, telling them all, over and over, how it is that we live forever.
We're going to light the chalice with this poem, We Are a People of Beauty, by Kimberly Ann Tomczyk Carlson. Recognizing the beauty around us and within us, in voice and spirit, we gather to light our chalice. May we savor the beauty of our abundance and diversity, always cherishing one another and our earth. May we remember to inhale the lushness in life, knowing that we are a people of beauty. And now, please rise in body or spirit and join me in saying our church's affirmation of covenant and in singing the doxology in English and Spanish. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. And now, please join me in singing our opening hymn, number 109, As We Come Marching, Marching. One of the ways we support one another in community is through the sharing of joys, sorrows, and milestones. In these challenging times, it is crucial that we make attempts to stay connected to one another. If you have a joy, sorrow, or milestone you'd like to share with the congregation this morning, please raise your hand and I will bring the mic to you. State your name and what is on your heart. Are there any joys, sorrows, or milestones this morning?
Hello, I'm Steve Hitchcock. The auction is over.
Now you can rest.
Joy and a sorrow.
Good morning, I'm Jeff Harris. My wife Keisha had surgery a few weeks ago and then winded up in the hospital again, but is back home and is recovering slowly and steadily. So thank you for your support.
Let's hold Keisha in our thoughts.
This is going to sound very silly, but in 1965 I was married, and the first thing we bought was a 1965 Mustang. I passed that down to my son, and yesterday he gave it to his son on his 60th birthday.
Any others? Are we back? Okay. I light this candle for the joys and sorrows expressed today and for those you hold in your hearts. We all hold hopes and dreams, wounds and worries in our hearts. Remembering this, let us treat one another with patience and love.
Well, the little gremlins of Mercury retrograde left the meditation out of the order of service. So we're going to do one anyway, despite the gremlins. So I would invite you now to relax into your chairs. Close your eyes if you're comfortable doing so. Just take a couple of long, slow, deep breaths. And let whatever tension there is in your body just let go. Let it roll down off your shoulders, through your body, down through your legs into the waiting arms of Mother Earth, who receives all, transforms all. And in the space left behind by that release, find that still small center, that stillness at the center of your being. And this is the time of year when life courses again, rising up through the plants, through the grass, into the animals, after the cold winter and the short days. Like the ebb and flow of a tide. And right now that tide is rising. And I invite you to feel that there in that still small space. That rising tide that unites us with all the life on this planet. And let's rest in those waters for the moment. Thank you.
I'm glad my phone isn't messing it up. The next is a poem from Finn McCool, The Song of Finn in Praise of May. May Day, delightful day, bright colors play the veils along, now wakes at morning's slender ray, wild and gay the blackbird's song. Now comes the bird of dusty hue, the loud cuckoo, the summer lover. Branching trees are thick with leaves. The bitter, evil time is over. Swift horses gather nigh where half dry the river goes. Tufted heather crowns the height. Weak and white, the bog down blows. Corncrake sings from eve till morn. Deep in corn, a strenuous bard sings the virgin waterfall, white and tall, her one sweet word. Loaded bees of little power, goodly flower harvest win. Cattle roam with muddy flanks, busy ants go out and in. Through the wild harp of the wood, making music roars the gale. Now it slumbers without motion, on the ocean sleeps the sail. Men grow mighty in the May, proud and gay the maidens grow. Fair is every wooded height, fair and bright the plain below. A bright shaft has smit the streams, with gold gleams the water flag. Leaps the fish, and on the hills ardor thrills the flying stag. Carols loud the lark on high, small and shy his tireless lay, singing in wildest, merriest mood of delicate-hued, delightful May.
Well, we're about a week out from May Day, and I thought maybe it would be a good idea to think a little bit about it ahead of time. History is always interesting, and it's full of lessons for us. So I want to start with a question. When did we stop celebrating May Day? As a child, I can remember making May baskets for my mother out of colored construction paper and filling them with flowers and taking them home. And I'm sure some of you remember that as well. And May Day marked the coming of the warm and vibrant weeks of summer and the summer vacation that was soon to be. This is really important when you're a kid. And though it's widely celebrated in much of the world, nobody really celebrates May Day here in America. But the people that do are unions, pagans. May Day is International Workers' Day. It's a national holiday in more than 80 countries. It's also an ancient summer festival that's been observed for centuries across the Northern Hemisphere. I personally think that May Day is the perfect UU holiday. And it's a holiday that we should reclaim and restore and passionately celebrate. Because May Day has become a forgotten holiday. Or perhaps not so much forgotten as suppressed and marginalized. Because after all, May Day represents two very subversive ways of thinking and being in the world, the red and the green. The red is for the struggles of working people to organize and have some control over their lives. And the green is for life and our deep ties with the web of life on earth. Great forests and vast grasslands once covered the temperate north, and every spring they burst forth in green glory. The flowers blossomed, and the birds sang, and the bees hummed as life pulsed in the warming earth and sky. And what could our ancestors do but emulate our earth cousins and celebrate the greening of the world? And they celebrated in May, named after Maya, the mother of all the gods and goddesses in the Roman pantheon. And fire and dancing and fertility and trees figured prominently. The Greeks had their sacred groves and the Druids their oaks. In Scotland, the herdsmen formed circles and danced around fires. The Celts lit bonfires on hilltops to honor Beltane, and I could fill pages with other examples. People went a-Maying, going into the woods and fields and bringing back boughs and blossoms to decorate their homes with green garlands and flowers. Maypoles, representing the tree of life, were raised up. Dances were danced, music was played, drink was drunk, and love was made. Winter was over and summer had come. And it was a day of revelry, of letting loose, a day of honoring the life that coursed through both the world and the people. But unfortunately, with the coming of Christianity, the earth rights were suppressed, and May Day survived in popular secular forms. But whatever form it took, May Day was clearly not a day of work. In fact, it's the most ancient workers' holiday of all. There were those, of course, who frowned on taking a day off to frolic in the woods and fields, like the people from our own religious lineage, the Puritans. And while we have to give them credit for helping to reduce the power of the church and the monarchy, Puritans are not exactly what you'd call a fun-loving bunch. In 1550, an act of parliament required that maypoles be destroyed, and it outlawed the May Day games as well. In 1644, the Puritans, who by then had overthrown the king and taken over England, abolished May Day altogether, to great public outcry and more than a little resistance. After the restoration of the monarchy, May Day was restored by Charles II to the great delight of the English people. Now, just a few years earlier in 1620, many Puritans had fled to New England seeking religious freedom. And of course, it was a rather ironic coincidence that they sailed on the Mayflower. 4 years later, 1624, in a completely separate venture from the Pilgrims, a man named Thomas Morton settled on Mount Wollaston on the southwestern arc of Massachusetts Bay, accompanied by a few free men and several indentured servants. The land seemed a paradise to him. He wrote, "There are fowls in abundance, fish in multitudes, and I discovered besides millions of turtle doves on the green boughs, which sat pecking at the full, ripe, pleasant grapes that were supported by the lusty trees, whose fruitful load did cause the arms to bend." Now, Thomas Morton grew up in England's Wild West country. In village life, there was a syncretic mix of Anglican rites and older pre-Christian rituals like the Maypole revels that hallowed and celebrated people's relations with nature and each other. These were people with a deep antipathy towards Puritans. Two of their most important social values were a code of neighborliness that shared hospitality across social and other differences, and a code of quietness, which meant that general peace was more important than most reasons for conflict. Morton studied law in London, where he was exposed to Renaissance ideas, as well as to what was then called natural philosophy. He renamed Mount Wollaston and called it Marymount, and set about creating a community that modeled the English village life he loved. He was a smart man. So when he needed people for his colony, he offered to free the indentured servants in his care if they would join him. And I quote him here, "Join me as my partners and consociates, so that you may be free from service, and we will converse, trade, plant, and live together as equals, and support and protect one another." He was also a very observant man. And one of the things that he noticed was that the local natives were also villagers with whom he might have many things in common. He got to know them as fellow human beings, and he thought far more of them than he did his Puritan neighbors. He sold the Indians guns and powder, which, given the flintlocks of the day, was not of great military significance. They were mostly smoke and noise. Bows and arrows were far more effective weapons. It was largely a gesture of trust in his allies. But he set up fur trade with many of the tribes. Some of the men of Marymount took native wives, and the village grew and prospered. It became a refuge for the discontented, runaway servants, and what the Puritan government of Plymouth called all the scum of the country. On May Day, 1628, the colony erected a maypole 80 feet high, decorated it with garlands, wrapped it in ribbons, and nailed to its top the antlers of a buck. They brewed a barrel of beer. And everyone for hundreds of miles around, natives and Europeans alike, was invited to the party. Even a few Plymouth residents showed up. And Morton attached to the pole the first lyric verses penned in America, which concluded with these lines: The great Earth Mother's call none ever can withstand. And yet, that same love points this land with proclamation, friends, the 1st of May, shall here at Merry Mount be holy day. Unfortunately, this cross-cultural experiment was ended the next year when Puritan forces led by Miles Standish, whom Morton called Captain Shrimp. It was true. Yeah. Our ancestors were not without a sense of humor. Miles Standish destroyed the colony, cut the maypole down, scattered the inhabitants. Religious and social freedom, it seems, was not for other people. The Puritans then began a campaign of conquest and eradication that would set the pattern for English interactions with indigenous America for centuries to come. Many historians believe that the Puritans did not destroy Marymount because of its lusty English country ways and its fraternization with the natives, but because in a few short years it had come to dominate the fur trade and become an agricultural and economic power surpassing that of Plymouth. I think the reasons seem obvious. After all, if you were a native, who would you rather trade with? Grim pilgrims who flogged people in the public square and thought you were savages? Or transplanted English villagers who treated you with respect and danced with you around a pole with antlers on it? Marymount prospered by fair means, as Morton would say. Now, we shouldn't romanticize Morton and Marymount as being some kind of rainbow utopia in the wilderness. But we might consider how different America might have been as if his brand of consociation had become the norm. Because there were a lot of these social experiments on the frontier, and they were all eventually pushed aside by the forces of greed and intolerance. The red of struggle is deeply rooted here in America. In 1884, the U.S. Federation of Organized Trade and Labor Unions passed a resolution declaring that as of May 1, 1886, an 8-hour workday would be the full and legal workday for all U.S. workers. The employers had 2 years to recognize this new standard and put it into effect. And of course, they refused. May 1st, 1886, hundreds of thousands of workers took to the streets in a general strike throughout the country to force employers to recognize the 8-hour working day. 2 days later, May 3rd, Chicago police opened fire on the unarmed striking workers in the McCormick Reaper Works, killing 6 workers and wounding untold more. The next day, at a rally in Haymarket Square, the police again demanded that the workers disperse. A bomb was thrown, 7 policemen died. The police retaliated by firing into the crowd, killing 4 and wounding hundreds. And the bomb thrower was never discovered. In a controversial trial, 8 prominent labor radicals were charged with conspiracy. And despite a lack of evidence linking any of them directly to the bombing, 7 of the 8 were convicted of murder and sentenced to death. The 8th was sentenced to 15 years in prison. And it was a very dark time for the American labor movement, and it nearly destroyed the labor movement because public opinion was manipulated against them. But labor rallied, kept the struggle alive. 4 years later, on May 1st of 1890, massive strikes were held throughout Europe and America, Peru, Chile, and Cuba to demand the international adoption of the 8-hour workday. And since then, workers throughout the world have observed the 1st of May as a day of international worker solidarity. people struggled and fought and died so that we could have an 8-hour workday and a 5-day work week. We should never forget that. We should never forget their sacrifice. But what's so important about an 8-hour workday that people would die for it? The workers' demand was this: 8 hours for work, 8 hours for rest, 8 hours for us. Not 16 hours working for the boss and 8 hours for everything else. 8 hours to recreate. 8 hours to dance around the maypole if we liked. 8 hours to educate ourselves and our children. To read, to write. 8 hours to be with family and friends. 8 hours to think and organize. 8 precious hours to dedicate to a better present and a better future. Bread, yes, but roses too. People with free time to think and organize are a threat. So employers fought back hard. From the logging camps of Oregon to the mills of New England to the stockyards of Chicago, police and private goon squads intimidated, wounded, and sometimes killed workers and organizers. And when the employers finally and grudgingly gave in, they fought against international solidarity. Labor Day in the US was moved to September. To keep citizens from heeding the populist call of May Day, in 1958, President Eisenhower proclaimed May 1st to be Law Day. Trump declared it to be Loyalty Day, neither of which anybody remembers, thank goodness. But the struggle isn't over. From the sweatshops of Bangladesh to the Fight for 15, people are still fighting for fair hours and living wages, for safe working conditions and decent treatment. And we who are better off must stand with them. The struggle for a better present and a better future goes on. And if we stop, we lose ground. And the red and the green twine together and strengthen and support each other in very beautiful ways. Leigh Hunt, an English essayist of the 19th century, wrote that May Day is the union of the two best things in the world: the love of nature and the love of each other. The love of nature and the love of each other. And there are those who would deny us that holy union, who would deny us our consociation with each other and with the other life on earth, who would deny us our lusty years filled with green life and love, who would deny those 8 precious hours and a fair wage, the right to self-determination. And because of this, green solidarity with nature and each other can only be realized through red struggle. But life cannot be and should not be only about work and struggle. That sounds far too grim and Puritan to me, and we mostly gave up being Puritans about 200 years ago. So there should be dancing and maypoles and green boughs, and enough for all, north and south, east and west, no matter their station in life, because there must be love and laughter, or what is living for. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend. That was very informative. It's very interesting. The operation and outreach of our church needs your input and your contributions. This is the perfect time to think about what you can give back. In a moment, the greeters will pass among you with the offering baskets. Please give generously. But before they do that, I should remind you that we support organizations identified by the Social Justice Committee with our Change for Change program. This quarter's recipient for our Change for Change donations is Border Servant Corps. You can give to them by putting your change in the basket or by writing Change for Change on the note line of your check. Please give generously.
Our closing hymn is This Little Light of Mine. I invite you to rise in body or spirit as we sing together. I'm going to teach you some gestures, or you could clap.
And you could switch.
We start with our virtual chalice here, This Little Light of Mine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of
History is important. It can teach us a lot of things. It also teaches us where we come from as people, as a religious faith. Our Unitarian ancestors started out saying to the priests and the popes and the kings and the princes, "You can't tell us what to believe, how to think, how to act, how to feel." And our Universalist ancestors said that truth belongs to everybody. Everybody's saved. Everybody belongs. We're all in this together. Those two things changed the world. So it's our duty to carry that faith forward. And not just for ourselves, but for our children's children, and other people's children, and their children, and for all the life on the planet. And to me, that's the message of May Day. So I think we should start celebrating that again, whatever way we can. So, amen. May it be so. We're going to extinguish our flame now, then the postlude, and it didn't end up in the OOS, but we're going to do the hand-holding benediction after the postlude. So, you ready to go? Our words? We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. May love and courage fill our hearts. May love and courage fill our hearts. May love and wisdom light our minds. May love and wisdom light our minds. May love flow through us and walk among us. May love flow through us and walk among us. As we live our lives. And work to make the